عادل.
أهلا وسهلا.
شكرا.
السلام عليكم.
شكرا ستنا.
السلام عليكم جميعا.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
مرحبا، أحييكم.
بك على فضل، على عمرك.
السلام عليكم فضيلة الشيخ عبد الله.
السلام. حياكم الله سيدي.
السلام عليكم الجميع.
السلام
عليك الشيخ نور الحق قادري.
شكرا سيدي.
لكن جودة أظن نبتدي.
In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, and may God's blessings be upon his prophets and messengers. Your Excellencies, Abu Tamam, the poet, says that it is great to see people who are close to us. They are like moons and suns in our eyes. From the land of peace, we are addressing you in order to spread peace, and the best beginning for this gathering is verses of the Quran from Sheikh Abdul Basit Abdul Samad, the Emirati version.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم تر أن الله أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به ثمرات مختلفا ألوانها ومن الجبال جدد بيض وحمر مختلف ألوانها وغرابيب سود ومن الناس والدواب والأنعام مختلف ألوانه كذلك إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء إن الله عزيز غفور. إن الذين يتلون كتاب الله وأقاموا الصلاة وأنفقوا مما رزقناهم سرا وعلانية يرجون تجارة لن تبور ليوفيهم أجورهم ويزيدهم من فضله إنه غفور شكور. صدق الله العظيم.
فتح الله عليك شيخ عبد الباسط. شكرا لك.
Thank you, Sheikh Abdul Basit. Now, I would like to introduce His Excellency Nahyan Mubarak Al Nuhayan, the Minister of Tolerance in the United Arab Emirates. The floor is yours, sir.
أولا نبتدي بالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين. فضيلة الشيخ عبد الله مبيه رئيس منتدى التحليل الشرعي، أصحاب الفضيلة المشاركون في الملتقى السابق للمنتدى، معالي الشيخ الدكتور محمد عبد الكريم عيسى الأمين العام لرابطة العالم الإسلامي، معالي الدكتور محمد مختار جمع وزير الأوقاف، معالي نور الحق غادري الوزير الاتحادي للشؤون الدينية والتحالف بين الأديان، سعادة السفير سام براون باك سفير الحريات الدينية في وزارة الخارجية الأمريكية، سعادة جاستن ويلبي رئيس ساقفة كانتبري كنيسة إنجلترا، ومعالي ميغيل مورا تونس الممثل السامي للتحالف الحضارات التابع للأمم المتحدة، وسعادة البروفيسورة ميليسا روجرز المدير السابق لمكتب الشراكات الدينية في البيت الأبيض، الأستاذ في كلية لاهوات الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية. أيها الأخوة الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أحييكم أطيب تحية ويسعدني ويشرفني أن أشترك معكم.
It is my pleasure to be with you here today
في هذا المنتدى الذي ينعقد في ظل الرعاية الكريمة لسمو الأخ الشيخ عبد الله بن زايد آل نهيان الخارجية والتعاون الدولي، الذي يحرص دائما على رعاية هذه الفعاليات المهمة. التي تعبر عن ثقة كاملة في مستقبل الأمة وبقدراتها على الانفتاح بوعي وذكاء على كافة التطورات في العالم، بل وعن اعتزازه كذلك.
This event shows that we are very proud of what we are doing here in the Emirates. We are playing a major role in helping the world to become more developed.
إن موضوع هذا الملتقى أيها الأخوة إنما يؤكد عندي عددا من المعاني المهمة.
The topic of this forum confirms a number of important values, and one of these values is the following. In Abu Dhabi, we talk about the world post-corona and how we can prepare ourselves for a better world for everyone. This country is looking forward to the future, and it is always working to deal with the different parameters. And thanks be to God, we are a country where the people are closely connected to their leaders. They love their leaders, they enjoy safety, security, and stability. And we are working together in order to achieve the vision of our leader through his continuous work and through his support to the different initiatives. We are working on having a successful future and a bright future for our area and for our world. We are working in a way that is in line with the different parameters, the different new parameters, and we are emphasizing the joint work as a value. We want to achieve the good for all. We want to develop the different institutions in the different areas. Another thing that crossed my mind when I was invited to speak at this forum is how important it is to understand the challenges before us. We need to look at the challenges facing the world in the post-corona era. These are challenges that are connected in a direct way with this pandemic. And some of the challenges are connected with different areas that may hamper our progress. And it is very clear to me that we need to build the capabilities of our societies to face pandemics. We need to focus in a serious manner on deepening the cooperation, the international cooperation in this field. We are convinced that facing pandemics is the responsibility of all countries jointly. All of us have a duty to fulfill and a responsibility to bear. We need to help those who are most vulnerable, those who are at risk of suffering as a result of pandemics. We need to do this work in the context of a framework that puts aside discrimination. We should work to help everyone to feel optimistic and hopeful in the future. There are important calls and initiatives around the world which we are supporting very strongly in order to make sure that there is fair distribution of the vaccine of COVID-19 and the medicines and medications that can treat this virus. We are working on supporting the fair distribution of this. And we are doing this irrespective of any differences between us. We look at all human beings as equals. At the same time, in the post-corona era, the world will continue to face other challenges. It will continue to face internal and external challenges, things that are related to information and communication technology. It will have to do with different economic alliances, trade wars, the ubiquity of smart devices, maybe sectarian rifts. We will have all these challenges to deal with, either internally or between countries. We also have the climate change challenges, challenges also related to education, healthcare, human development, societal development. All these are challenges we will have to deal with. These are challenges that are in common between all people of the world, and they are directly linked to shaping our present and our future in all parts of the world. Brothers and sisters, the third point I would like to point to today is that I hope that this forum is going to be a venue for us to confirm that we in Muslim societies and in the whole world, we are going to be launching initiatives and using the appropriate means in order to meet all these challenges and face them. I hope that through your recommendations and through your suggestions and proposals, you are going to be raising your voices that solidarity between all parts of the world is the only way forward. It is the only effective way to deal with these challenges. Muslim societies are fully capable of contributing to give the world and take from the world, to interact with the world in a positive way. We have a history to be proud of. It is a history full of human interaction. In this forum, I hope that you are going to raise your voices and clarify that Islam has always been a religion that respects the mind, respects the intellect, that calls for solidarity and launching initiatives of common work for the good of all. Islam is always connected with virtues and human principles that aim to achieve justice, freedom, and a decent life for all. It aims to achieve prosperity for all. Islam has always called for balanced views and a balance between duties and responsibilities. It is also a religion that aims to empower human beings to be the stewards of the earth and to create whatever is in the good of all. I hope that your suggestions, your discussions and recommendations in this forum are going to emphasize these virtues and these human values in dealing with the challenges that we are meeting in our present and we will meet in our future. And today I would like to emphasize the importance of the role that we all have to play, which is the role of bringing everyone together and uniting all people of the world. It is also a role that helps to make decision-making at all levels a wiser process. And please allow me to point out that the United Arab Emirates is going to celebrate next year its 50th anniversary, and the UAE has set before its eyes an important goal for the coming 50 years, and that is for us to remain a country based on values and human virtues. We plan to have this as a guiding path for us. These values of tolerance, of coexistence, of solidarity, justice, and doing good for all, these are our values. We are going to do all this without discrimination. Brothers and sisters, in conclusion, I would like to point out that values and virtues in our world can only be achieved by the people of this world. People who are in the right mind, people who are able to communicate with others and deal confidently and openly with others. The people of this world, through their thinking and through their virtues, can decide whether a society can contribute to the good of this world or not. So we must work to infuse everyone to work for the good of everyone, and this in the frame of coexistence, solidarity, and putting our differences aside. We have to put our interest as a society first. This has to have priority over the interest of individuals or different groups. I am confident that Islamic societies are going to be successful in facing the serious challenges that we will have to deal with in the post-corona era, and I'm confident that we will play our role in order to help our humanity go forward. I pray to God that all of you are going to be successful in your discussions and deliberations. And I would like to express my gratitude once all to His Excellency Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan for his sponsorship and for allowing this meeting to go through. I would like to wish you all the best, and I hope to be able to see you in the future in Abu Dhabi, your second country. Thank you for your participation, and may you all be successful, and may God's peace be upon you. Thank you.
شكرا لمعالي الشيخ نهيان بن مبارك آل نهيان وزير التسامح وزير التسامح الطيبة. الآن أيها الأحبة ننتقل مع كلمة معالي العلامة عبد الله بن بية رئيس منتدى تعزيز السلم في المجتمعات المسلمة المتحدة، فليتفضل.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، اللهم صل وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى إخوانه من النبيين والمرسلين. شكرا معالي الشيخ نهيان مبارك آل نهيان على الكلمة القيمة التي افتتحتم بها.
We thank His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak Al Nahyan for his kind words in opening this forum.
Your Excellency Sheikh Nahyan,
His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan Mubarak Al Nahyan, Minister of Tolerance, His Excellency Dr. Muhammad bin Abdullah Al Isa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League, His Excellency Muhammad Mukhtar Joma, Minister of Endowments in Egypt, His Excellency Nurul Haq Qadri, Federal Minister of Religious Affairs and Interfaith Alliance in Pakistan, His Most Reverend and Right Honourable Justin Welby, Archbishop of Canterbury, Church of England, also Ambassador Sam Brownback, United States Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedoms in the Department of State, the United States of America, His Excellency Mr. Miguel Angel Moratinos, High Representative of the United Nations Alliance for Civilizations, and Professor Melissa Rogers, Your Excellencies, Your Eminences, Your Beatitudes, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to welcome you as we have become used to welcoming you in the forum of promoting peace in the capital of peace and coexistence, in the capital of the United Arab Emirates. I thank you for joining us in this 7th forum, which is taking place under exceptional circumstances. Our minds and our hearts meet whilst we are physically hostages of the circumstances and the restrictions imposed on us. The forum has consistently been a new and a unique model of dialogue and meeting of minds. In addition to the presentations, discussions, and working groups, there was another form of connection, no less important, which is the presence in person and where we meet and where civilizations meet in a shared place, sharing in life and motion and speaking together. Such gatherings have always been in the capital of humanism, Abu Dhabi, where everyone experienced for themselves the spirit of peace as it existed in his homeland, and where everyone was inspired by the vision of tolerance and the fragrance of love. Our assembly comes this year in the context of existential challenges facing humanity as a result of this pandemic, which disrupted our patterns of human life and rearranged our priorities and questioned our human values, our principal values. It's a crisis of paradoxes in the management of dialects, and which humanity has not seen before. We have met as human beings many crises over the ages, but this particular crisis is unique in our modern age. Its impacts have been felt throughout our lives. It is a crisis that brings many crises with it. It is a crisis of contradictions. And humanity is now called upon to strike extremely delicate balances between a number of contradictions, between the healthcare bill and the economic bill, and whether we choose to prioritize the protection of life or the protection of wealth. Also, a choice between the logic of objective scientific research, which is based upon cooperation and sharing of knowledge, versus the logic of markets, which are based upon the protection of intellectual property and hoarding. Choice between the nation state that has reestablished its centrality and necessity and efficacy, and an open world with international cooperation as possibly the only way out of this crisis. Also, a choice between the value of life and the value of religion, as believers of all faiths were obliged by the pandemic to abandon some of their practices and collective rights to give precedence to the value of life and their religions, which their religions call upon them to protect. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, even though this pandemic began as a health crisis, it quickly turned into a crisis of values and morality. It's a crisis which tests our values, our morals, and our very faith. It tests our character, both in our interactions with one another, at home, and with our neighbors. Do we practice patience and solidarity, or do we submit to hopelessness and despair? Do we rely on ourselves only and hang on to our very narrow interests? This crisis, with its challenges and its losses, however, in spite of this, it opens new horizons to the future and opens a number of opportunities and possibilities to reform and reconcile for those who can reflect deeply on things and learn the lessons. It's a rare opportunity to discover ourselves, to find within ourselves, us human beings, to find the hidden well springs of goodness and the values and virtues inside us, so that we can strive towards the absolutes in a state of free of limitation of the ego and selfishness. It's a chance to end the conflict of identities and to stem the tide of destructive violence and to stop the destructive wars. This year's meeting opens a possibility to promote shared universal values of equity, of solidarity, of fraternity, in a new spirit, the spirit of a group of passengers on a single ship as a metaphor. This is the title we have selected for this meeting. The values in a world after COVID, with the spirit of the passengers of one ship. What does this mean, the passengers of one ship? We present here an example from Islamic tradition, from the hadiths of the Prophet, but it is a universal example. Our prophets, God's blessings and prayers be upon him, said that the similitude of the one upholding the laws of God and the one breaking it are like a group of people who drew lots on where they should sit in a ship. Some sat at the deck, the top deck, and others were in the galley. And when the ones in the galleys were in need of water, they would go to the deck, passing by the others. And at some point, they decided that if they were to just bore a hole in the hull, they could draw water out of it without having to go upstairs onto the deck and annoy the other passengers. And if those on top of the deck had allowed them to do so, everybody would have drowned. This hadith, this tradition, contains a profound metaphor for the state of humanity, their common trajectory and their shared destiny. Even though the ship has different levels, the passengers on board shared one journey and a single common destiny. This ship, as commentators on the hadith had stated, is the whole world, our planet, and all of its different inhabitants. The drawing of lots mentioned in the hadith could also be understood as the division of labor and rank in our world. People on the deck of the ship and those who manage public affairs, and they are responsible for taking care of the 5 universally protected interests necessary for civilization, which are life, religion, reason, property, and family. This ship contains everybody of all races, all levels, and they all share the ship as one destiny. And those on the upper deck are in charge of managing the public affairs and responsible for taking care of everything, of those 5 necessities of civilization: life, religion, reason, property, and family. And this interconnection has become very clear in today's world. We are connected in the most intricate and yet explicit of ways. And whatever happens in one part of the world has knock-on effects in the other parts. Whatever people do in one part of the world likewise affects people in other parts of the globe. We share one interconnected system with no ultimate means of separation or segregation from one another. The environment and the climate are an example. They are a great example of this. Any change bears effect on the entire living beings on this world. And we've seen an example, for example, in the explosion, the nuclear reactor in Chernobyl. And the impact was not limited to the immediate environs, and the impacts were not limited to any spatial or temporal manner. They last for a very long time into the future. So we are all passengers of one ship. Pardon me. The passengers of this ship, they may be diverse and different, but they are united by a conviction that their survival depends upon their solidarity and cooperation and integration, and upon the recourse to the values of compassion, love, and tolerance, and the responsibility and freedom and rational governance. Now, you can imagine what the condition of the ship's passengers would have been if they had quarreled amongst themselves and squabbled instead of cooperating. If they have let loose their selfishness, their inevitable destiny would have been drowning. In the stormy sea. So the metaphor of the ship's passengers renews virtues in our soul and underlies the awareness of the unity of human destiny and calls for a universal gift of conscience that restores the effectiveness of cooperation, solidarity, and compassion amongst us. It presents a new vision of humanity that surpasses the discourse of equality and disregard for difference. It demands that we attain the positive virtues which enable others to feel the true warmth of our love and fraternity. And with this optimistic spirit, we bear the good news of a world in which peace will be all-encompassing, not merely by stopping warfare, but through the attainment of peace in and by the human heart. And as we've just heard from His Excellency Sheikh Nahyan, this is in line with the vision of the UAE through its cooperation and solidarity with countries impacted by this pandemic, with no regard for their faith and predominant religions. The Forum for Promoting Peace, by hosting this elite group of thinkers and religious leaders, and academics and policymakers from different walks of life, including health experts from international organizations and senior political decision makers, sociologists and religious leaders especially. By inviting all these, we aspire to draw the contours of a new vision of life that balances all of our universal concerns and guarantees a more humane system of international relations, a more just and merciful economic system which concentrates on promoting human welfare and well-being and the interest of the environment, and focuses on human beings and focuses on world peace. We hope that our discussions here over these coming 3 days will help draw the world's attention to this new beginning that we are offered by this crisis, and will allow us to call for the birth of a new human being with a new vision of the world, to reconstruct our values and our relations with others and with other creatures in the world, in the natural world. Each community has its own direction to which it turns, race to do good deeds, and wherever you are, God will bring you together. God has power for everything, to do everything. In conclusion, I thank you all, and I pray to God that He preserves our homelands, reforms our actions, and makes our meetings goodly and blessed and successful. God's peace be upon you.
شكرا لك الشيخ عبد الله بن بية على هذه الكلمة الطيبة. والآن مع معالي الدكتور محمد مختار جمعة وزير الأوقاف لجمهورية مصر العربية، فليتفضل مشكورا.
Thank you. And now we listen to His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Mukhtar Jum'a, the Minister of Endowment from Egypt. Praise be to God, Lord of the Lords, and blessings and peace be upon the last of his prophets and messengers, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and upon his family, companions, and those who follow his guidance until the day of judgment. Your Excellency, Sheikh Nahyan, Mubarak Al Nahyan, Minister of Tolerance in the UAE, Your Eminence, Sheikh Abdullah bin Baya, the Chairman of the United Arab Emirates Fatwa Council and President of the Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies, Your Excellency, Dr. Muhammad bin Abdul Karim Al Isa, the Secretary General of the Muslim World League in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Your Excellency, Dr. Noor Al-Haq Qadri, Federal Minister of Religious Affairs and Interfaith Alliance in Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, the ambassadors, the bishops, the researchers, the participants. It is my pleasure to start by thanking the UAE and the Forum for the Promotion of Peace for this effort and for bringing us together in this conference and in other conferences that aim to serve humanity, especially everything that has to do with coexistence between the different religions, cultures, and civilizations, and cooperation between us all. The UAE is really a leader in this field. The UAE respects diversity, and it shows. There is no doubt that adversity, tribulations, and calamities require solidarity and cooperation to confront them and overcome the challenges they pose. Just as general adversities and tribulations develop the sense of humanity, and they call for compassion among human beings. And from there, I confirm the following. First, we realize that all divine religions are concerned with achieving compassion among human beings. And we affirm that our true religion is based on solidarity and compassion and respect for the human being and raising his status as a human being. God, glory be to him, says, cooperate with one another in goodness and righteousness, and do not cooperate in sin and transgression. Our Prophet, may God's prayers and peace be upon him, was asked, which people are dearest to God? And he said, those who are the most beneficial to others. And our Prophet talked about others as a general term that is all-encompassing. It encompasses all people, irrespective of their background, of their religions, their nationalities, their creeds, their race, their gender, etc. That's why I say that solidarity, compassion, and human support to one another is a duty to us all. In the light of this pandemic, where we are all faced by the spread of the coronavirus, this is something that requires us all to show solidarity to one another. Second, our true religion taught us that the upper hand is better than that of the lower hand. The giver is better than the receiver. And we realize that partnership requires participation. We cannot be partners unless we are influential and effective in today's world. And unless we have what we share in terms of money, science, or technological progress, we cannot be true partners. Our duty then is to work and to produce and to contribute to humanity and to make sure that we complement each other. This is the theory that is adopted by this very special conference. Third, we realize that true believers are people who are closest to human values and ethical values, because they pursue these values in their daily dealings. Faith makes people more noble. So our religion teaches us that people are brethren, either because they share the same religion or because they share with us our humanity. And a person is honored on the basis of his kindness and humanity, regardless of his religion, color, or gender. God says, indeed, we have dignified the children of Adam. And this shows that the children of Adam are dignified because they share humanity, and this makes us very aware of the value of humanity and everything that serves humanity. And fourth, on the scale of benefits and disadvantages, the theory of the ship passengers that our true religion taught us, and so also something that was taught to us by our Prophet. This slogan that this conference adopts, the solidarity and in the post-corona era and the spirit of the ship passengers, this requires that everyone understands the extent of the contemporary dangers and challenges. We need to realize that we cannot make it to the shore if we do not work together. So it is not going to be possible for some to survive and others to not survive. We all are on the same ship, and we are all need to work together in order to reach the shore. So when the corona pandemic spread, no one country could face it, could close its borders or to close its air field, irrespective of how advanced this country is, because as Sheikh bin Baya said, this world is interlinked. It is not like the world of yesterday. Today's world is a large village. Whatever happens in the east echoes in the west, and whatever happens in the south will impact the north. And no one can enjoy complete security in this universe, whether it is a person or a country or a nation, unless others live in security and peace as well. We cannot achieve that in any field, not in the field of security or the economy or the ecology or defense. We all need to work together in order to survive this pandemic. If we spend on human solidarity and compassion 1/10 of what is spent on wars, our universe would have been very different indeed. This is what we must work to achieve, and this is what wise people and sages of this world must adopt, as has been done in this conference. And last, we need to work together. We have to adopt a team spirit without any discrimination on the basis of religion or color or creed. We need to develop the dialogue between countries and civilizations and religions and cultures. We need to work together on whatever can support our world and make it stronger. We need to face those who are working on separating us. We need to work on what is bringing us together. Finally, I would like to thank the forum and its chairman, the Sheikh bin Baya, and the UAE for organizing this gathering, and I wish you all success. May God's peace be upon you.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. نشكر لك معالي الدكتور محمد مختار جمعة على هذه الكلمة
May
النيرة.
God's peace be
ننتقل
upon you.
الآن
Thank you
إلى
very
معالي
much,
الشيخ نور الحق
Sheikh
قادري
Muhammad
الوزير
Mukhtar
الاتحادي للشؤون الدينية
Jum'a for
والتحالف بين
this.
الأديان
And
من جمهورية باكستان.
now I would
فليتفضل
like to give the
مشكورا.
floor to His Excellency Nur al-Haq Qadri, the Federal Minister of Religious Affairs from Pakistan.
سيدنا محمد وآله وأصحابه أجمعين. صاحب المعالي الشيخ نهيان بن بارك النحيان، سماحة الشيخ سيدي ومولاي العلامة عبد الله بن بية، معالي الشيخ دكتور محمد بن عبد الكريم العيسى، سيدي معالي الشيخ دكتور محمد مختار جمعة، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، علماؤنا الأجلاء الكرام، حييكم بتحية الإسلام، تحية السلام والوفاق والأمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية أوجه وافر شكري وتقديري لمنتدى العالمي لتعزيز السلم في المجتمعات المسلمة، ولجميع من ساهم في إقامة هذه المؤتمر المبارك بلم قيادات موقرة وعلماء أفاضل من دول العربية والإسلامية وجميع العالم، ليكون محور الكلام عن أهم نازحة تمر بها الإنسانية، وهي فيروس كورونا وما يتعلق به من موضوع المؤتمر: القيم الإنسانية فيما بعد فيروس كورونا، هي الفضائل في أوقات الأزمات. فأشكر الجميع على خدماتهم الطيبة للأمة الإسلامية ولجميع الإنسانية، وعلى اهتمامها بشؤون المجتمع الإنساني، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي العلامة الشيخ عبد الله بن بية حفظه الله ورعاه. سادة الحضور، أصبح فيروس كورونا الشغل الشاغل لجميع الأفراد، فقد أحدث انتشار الفيروس حالة من الذعر والهلع حول العالم، وهو ما دفع المسؤولين.
It has spread a lot of confusion and a lot of fear. It has caused those in charge to cancel flights, to suspend restaurants from work, to suspend theaters. In addition, some people have had to postpone their weddings, their special occasions and celebrations. Whole cities have had to go into lockdowns to fight this virus. We need to remember that those restrictions all are towards a common beneficial goal. On top of that, international systems are being tested, but not only that, also our moral and ethical values are being tested by the current crisis. As we see nowadays, there has been a lot of damage because of the coronavirus. It is, however, an opportunity that invites us to rethink our values and to rethink development. On the one hand, the world is, in one part of the world, people were fighting over the last toilet papers and the last goods and produces. Prices rocketed. However, on the other side, we saw that the coronavirus pandemic has awakened in some of us human values, values of solidarity. For example, values to refuse oppression, values to show solidarity in common calamities. This is an emergence of a new universal spirit. Because of the current coronavirus crisis, we see a new spirit of this age, especially amongst the youth. This crisis has once again confirmed that we human beings are inherently good and we are not evil. As we have seen from the current crisis, those positive human values are becoming deeply rooted in us, especially in our youth. From those positive values, we are seeing the value of disregarding selfishness, seeking to help others, seeking to demonstrate solidarity with others. Our youth today want to occupy positions and to have professions that will enable them to help others. Another highly positive thing that we saw with this crisis is the retreat in travel, in the movement of travel to other countries. This is positive because it will make people appreciate their local sites, the local opportunities they have in their own contexts. Now the question is, are these values going to remain with us after this crisis leaves us? This is a difficult question to answer. Are these values going to remain? Are they going to last following the end of the crisis? We don't know. It takes time for values and new ethics to consolidate itself in our world. In the times of crises and calamities, it is normal to see good, noble human values prevail, like solidarity, like compassion, like agreement, like rejection of oppression, like fearing for one another, etc. However, once the calamity or the crisis recedes, so do these values in time. There are many factors that decides which values and which elements will remain. One important factor in play here is the nature of the economic and the social and the political system in a given context. In a context or in a country that only seeks the value of a profit and the wealth of the minority, we cannot expect values like compassion and solidarity to remain. It is expected that those values will only remain with us in countries where the systems in control are, where the systems of governance in control are systems that seek tolerance and compassion and justice. Those noble values we're seeing today are values that may not stay with us after Corona. Will the post-Corona world see a change in the international political system and the international social system? Following the Corona crisis, we hope and we pray that we will emerge into a new world, a better, a more inclusive, and a more comprehensive world. A world that will have a new system that will seek to uphold the highest international values, will also seek to have security stability, will also seek to have peace between the different countries, communities, and the states. We hope that there will be a new political and intellectual system that will open the doors of agreement, rapprochement, and kindness between humans. And we hope that we will, in this new world, be able to resolve conflicts wherever they may be. Finally, I'd like to highlight the importance of having an international system where the poorer countries are also able to access vaccinations. We know that many countries lack the financial resources to provide vaccines for their people. This is one important point I'd like us to bear in mind. And I hope and I pray to God that this conference of ours, this forum, will be useful to all of us, to all humankind. I'd like to once again reiterate my thanks to His Excellency Sheikh bin Bayyah and all the organizers and all the distinguished guests and participants in this forum. And may God's peace be upon you.
أشكر معالي الشيخ نور الحق قادري على كلمته القيمة جدا.
Dr. Al-Haq
وفعلا
Al-Qadiri, for your speech. Yes, it's true. The coronavirus has called upon all of us to cooperate. And now I would like to invite Ambassador Sam Brownback from the United States, the Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. And greetings of peace to all of you. I'm Sam Brownback, as she noted. I'm the Ambassador for International Religious Freedom for the United States. It's a great honor to address you during the 7th Assembly of the Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies. It gives me great pleasure to congratulate my friend, Sheikh bin Bayyah, on his ongoing success in bringing together faith leaders, government officials, and civil society experts from literally all over the world to help advance a wide range of mutual interest. Esteemed participants, the networks you represent and the ideas you put forward are not only remarkable, but they are vital in achieving the goals of this peace forum. Sheikh bin Bayyah, it's been a privilege to get to know you and to work closely with you. As a world-renowned Islamic scholar and a highly respected faith leader, you inspire all of us with your dedication to tackling the toughest issues of our time, which you do with skill and ability. From the Marrakesh Declaration to the Alliance of Virtue, you've mobilized global scholars and leaders to address issues ranging from protection of religious minorities in Muslim-majority countries to ensuring unity across communities as we collectively deal with the deadly global pandemic. I'm particularly encouraged by the work of the Peace Forum, its partners and the government of the United Arab Emirates in advancing mutual understanding and respect across faith communities. There have been major, world-changing, groundbreaking initiatives in the past few years, really stunning initiatives and accomplishments, which involve many of you who are participating here today. The world is a more closely united place because of your efforts. Looking forward, the theme of this gathering neatly sums up the work that lies ahead for all of us. Human values after Corona, reviving virtues in times of crisis. The Peace Forum is insightful in posing questions about how the challenges we face from the pandemic reflect on the state of humanity. Preservation of human life is a clear priority for all of us. We're all also committed to uplifting the dignity of every individual, which is best achieved by protecting the rights of all individuals, especially in the face of current challenges. Without virtues, we cannot succeed in promoting human rights and uplifting dignity of every individual. I'd like to specifically discuss the need to fully protect the freedom of religion for all individuals in all places at all times. I've stressed in past gatherings this issue and the work the United States is doing to advance this freedom. I'm pleased to declare today that a global movement to advance religious freedom is clearly gaining momentum. Over the past several years, we've launched annual ministerials to advance religious freedom, bringing together governments and civil society leaders and religious leaders dedicated to the protection and promotion of religious freedom for all. Sheikh bin Bayyah has been an active participant and has addressed past gatherings. In early 2020, this year, the United States launched an International Religious Freedom Alliance, an action-oriented network of nations that has grown to include 32 countries. It meets monthly at the expert level and annually at the foreign minister level to coordinate religious freedom initiatives. It's a dynamic and growing group. One of the first initiatives of the International Religious Freedom Alliance was to call on all governments to fully protect the rights of all individuals, including members of religious minority groups, during the pandemic. Members of the Alliance called on governments to end the scapegoating of individuals on the basis of their faith. We specifically condemned false accusations against members of religious minority groups for spreading the virus. We urged governments not to discriminate against members of faith communities and only restrict access to places of worship when necessary to achieve health or safety objectives. And most importantly, we called on all governments to release all religious prisoners of conscience who are wrongfully detained and now at greater risk of contracting the coronavirus by being enclosed with others. I am very encouraged to report to you that I've received indications that, due in part to the advocacy of members of the Alliance countries, countries all over the world have released religious prisoners of conscience. We welcome such releases, including of prisoners of conscience in Burma, Cuba, Eritrea, Iran, Uzbekistan, Yemen, and other countries. There are a number of significant civil society initiatives that are helping to advance religious freedom and peace around the world, such as the Peace Forum and its Alliance of Virtue and Shared Human Values initiative. In January, an Abrahamic Faith Initiative, AFI, was launched in Rome. This initiative of faith leaders seeks to promote peace and mutual respect across and through Abrahamic faith communities globally. At that first AFI meeting, faith leaders in Rome, including Sheikh bin Bayef, expressed solidarity in promoting peace and mutual understanding. They all met again last week virtually and came up with inspiring concrete plans to work together for peace around the world. And one of those initiatives will be in West Africa, and a number of nations being threatened by great violence these days. I hope that the advocacy of members of the Alliance helps to end the persecution of individuals on the basis of their religion or beliefs. Nobody should face harassment, abuse, torture, imprisonment, or death for simply living in accordance with their conscience. Individuals, regardless of their background, should respect one another's beliefs and work together towards common challenges, such as the pursuit of peace and health during this pandemic and afterwards. Without this cooperation, we cannot improve our societies, and we cannot overcome one of the greatest challenges of our time in this global pandemic, which is having impacts far beyond its devastating health impacts. You are in a gathering of noble people with noble intentions. It gives me great hope to have this opportunity to speak with you and to continue learning from you and to work with you. I thank you for the important work you do for the greater good of all people. Blessings and best wishes to all of you. I look forward to our continued cooperation toward a better future. We simply must succeed. If we do not, there will be much more violence and carnage in the world, a future we do not want to see. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
شكرا سعادة السفير سام
Thank
براون
you.
باك على هذه
Your
الكلمة
Excellency,
القيمة جدا.
Ambassador
Thank you for this
Brownback,
word.
for this very
ننتقل الآن
wonderful
إلى
words.
معالي ميغا موراتينوس
We now
الممثل السامي لتحالف
give the word to
الحضارات
His
التابع
Excellency
للأمم
Mr.
المتحدة.
Miguel Angel
فليتفضل
Moratinos,
مشكورا.
High Representative of the United Nations for Alliance of Civilization. Please go ahead, sir.
Your Eminence, Sheikh Abdullah bin Baya, Chairman of Emirates Fatwa Council and President of the Forum for Promoting Peace in Muslim Societies. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, it's my pleasure to be addressing your esteemed annual forum for the first time. I thank His Eminence Sheikh bin Baya for providing the opportunity. Merci beaucoup, mon cher ami. The overarching theme of this year's forum and the panel discussion are very apt considering the socioeconomic, political, and psychological ramification of the COVID-19 pandemic. As 2020 comes to an end, I think this is an opportunity to take stock of our shortcomings before our achievement. The pandemic has been and still is a litmus test for political leaders, as well as individuals' empathy and resilience. It's a test of our commitment to common human values and the overall concept of we are all in this together. The COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare the world's vulnerabilities, division, falsehood, and brutal inequalities which thoroughly existed prior to the pandemic. Those features were put under magnifying glass for those with myopic vision. At the United Nations, we marked a few months ago the 70th anniversary of the creation of that organization. There were ample reflections on the global context back then and now. One thing for sure distinguished both eras. In the first one, the spirit of solidarity, unity, and collective action was the driving force behind the establishment of United Nations. And this spirit, my dear friends, is absent today. All events of such global consequence could and should generate the solidarity, resolve, and vision necessary to create those governance structures. The pandemic was used by some politicians to strengthen their pushback on multilateralism, cultural diversity, religion pluralism, and human rights. Societies were divided across cultural, ethnic, and religious lines. The hate virus, because it's a real virus hate, became a pandemic as well. We saw it in the appalling resurgence of neo-Nazis and white supremacist discourse, hate speech, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, Christianophobia, as well as all forms of discrimination against vulnerable communities further exacerbated. Youth and women were further marginalized despite their indispensable potential and valuable contribution to peace and development. Even old people and those with disabilities were not spared the stigma and the hate. The central notion here is that this global crisis is, above all, a human crisis, with the human being at the epicenter of it. Crisis as such demands coordinated, inclusive, and result-oriented responses based on unity and solidarity, and most importantly, in compassion. Such global context is reminiscent of the historical context that was the springboard for launching the United Nations Alliance of Civilization 15 years ago. Those who are not familiar with the work that the Alliance has been doing will rightly ask how are current global challenges relevant to the work of the Alliance? And we have to ask ourselves, can intercultural and interreligious dialogue play a constructive role in cementing our society again? How can pluralistic and increasingly complex societies can live together peacefully and respectfully? That are the questions we should to put ourselves. It is enough to save the planet, which is utterly crucial if we don't know how to share it and live together peacefully, respecting the equal right of individuals and communities around the world to participate in the society. Different culture, religion? These are some of the fundamental questions that United Nations Alliance of Civilization has been addressing since inception in 2005. So the complex, demanding dialogue, civilization, culture, and religion is necessary, possible, fruitful, and needed. Intercultural and interreligious dialogue is a critical tool against isolation, mistrust, and confrontation. It's also the most powerful vector for conflict prevention and conflict resolution. I must say, a viable tool that has been too often overlooked. History has shown that dialogue is not a simple process, but if we fail to teach and cultivate it, the situation can give way to a monologue or to mutism, which is conducive at the end to conflict and violent extremism. So, my dear friend, as we prepare to rebuild a better world, I firmly believe that cultural diversity and the invocation of spirituality are crucial components that should be included in our future diplomatic toolbox to complement the political dimension in conflict resolution. UNOSC was created to serve as a coalition against extremist forces, an initiative of collective will to advance mutual respect for culture, tradition, and religious belief, and a platform to bridge divides and overcome prejudice, stigmatization, misperception, and polarization. The Alliance advocates collective action in society as a means of addressing the threat that emerged from the prejudiced perception that incite violence, overcoming cultural and social barriers, reducing tension, improving relations between societies and communities with diverse culture and religious background, and combating violent extremism. Today's human crisis has proven beyond doubt that on all of society approach is imperative to overcome the challenge posed by COVID-19. Civil society, grassroots, women and youth-led organizations, as well as community-based organizations, play a vital role. In assisting the most vulnerable population, these networks are active in bringing economic and livelihood opportunities and adapting responses to the community context. We have long recognized the value added of active engagement with religious leaders and faith-based organizations. So we strengthened and expanded our network faith actors across the faith spectrum, women leaders and civil society organizations. So, my dear friend, I seize this opportunity to thank His Eminence Sheikh Ben Bella for his participation and absolutely valuable input in the consultative meeting on 28 May 2020, when we adopted the global pledge of action by religious leaders, which I convened with the UN, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Madame Michelle Bachelet, and Under Secretary General Dan Madian, the former Special Advisor for Genocide Prevention. In fact, as we speak, the operationalization of this meeting is taking place right now. The three entities are organizing a series of peer-to-peer learning webinars with representatives from religions and faith-based organizations, civil society, and human rights mechanisms in order to address and counter hate speech and discrimination related to COVID-19 and beyond. The webinar will also focus on exchanging information on ongoing action, which might stimulate new result-oriented activities and a specific action to respond to the current and future challenge posed by COVID-19 pandemic. So the changing nature of the global challenge we face today require a global responses, one that is anchored in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and rule of law. At the same time, we need to develop and strengthen the new form of cooperation with other international and religious organizations, a networked multilateralism, as well as closer contact with business, civil society, and other stakeholders, what we can call an inclusive and sustainable multilateralism. Let us always remember that the first word of the United Nations Charter are we the people. And it is we, the people of today's world, who are called upon to find ways to address our differences peacefully and respectfully, and to find opportunity to live and thrive on the planet that we are rightly striving to save. Racism and all forms of discrimination based on religion, ethnicity, color, or gender is an affront to universal human rights. So optimistic like myself, always see a light even in the darkest tunnel. This crisis provides us an opportunity to renew our commitment to fulfilling Goal 16 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goal. That is to promote just, peaceful, and inclusive society, showing compassion, fraternity, and kindness to the most vulnerable nation and people is what makes us all human, belonging to one humanity. One humanity despite our many cultural identity. It is the raison d'etre of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization. So, distinguished guests, we still have an opportunity. As Mr. Benbella said, the ship has not sailed yet. Let's go together in the same ship to create a better world. Thank you, and I look forward to listen to the discussion. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
معالي ميغيل موراتينوس على هذه الكلمة
Your
القيمة.
Excellency, Mr. Moratinos, for this speech. And now I give the floor to Professor Melissa Rogers, the professor at Wake Forest University Divinity School, a non-resident senior fellow in governance studies and member of Brookings Institute. The floor is yours, madam.
Thank you so much. Hello and greetings and peace to you all. Thanks to Sheikh Benbaya and the Forum for Peace for the great honor of the invitation to join you. I've watched Sheikh Benbaya and the Forum as you've led on such important initiatives like the Marrakesh Declaration and the Alliance of Virtue. You are providing such critical leadership for our world right now, and you have my profound thanks. I also want to thank all the distinguished speakers and participants in this event at this critical time in world history. As we come together across the globe, I know we all can agree that this pandemic simply can't end soon enough. The death toll has been staggering and it continues to grow. I know all who grieve are on our hearts and minds today. We've seen, and some of us have even experienced, lives being turned upside down due to loss of loved ones, long-term illnesses, lost jobs, bankrupt businesses, education interrupted, and dreams deferred. Many in our serving professions, particularly in the medical profession, those who serve in the clergy and others who take care of people in need, have been pushed beyond their limits. We have asked more of them than anyone should ever be asked. We've had to stay physically distant from friends and family and to give up things like celebrations, weddings, birthdays, anniversaries together, things that have brought us solace and joy. So like you, I am thrilled that we are on the brink of mass vaccinations. And as the other speakers have said, it will be so important that we move through this next chapter honorably and fairly. I thank God for the scientists who have worked tirelessly to bring us to this moment. And I pray that our leaders will handle this next chapter expertly and compassionately. And like all of you, I pray that we will each do our part to help. At the same time, as we look forward to closing this particular chapter, I hope that we will carry with us some insights and revelations that have come out of this crisis. I'd like to mention three of them. The first is increased awareness that collective acts recognizing transcendence, expressing gratitude, and demonstrating solidarity truly matter to the world. In cities dotted across the world, for example, many residents have set aside a particular time of day to go outside and to clap or bang pots and pans as a way of offering a collective thank you to our healthcare workers. Now, this practice is certainly no substitute for wearing masks and physically distancing, but it's a valuable addition to these things. The gesture is important. So is the fact that we do it together. We are bound together in this struggle. Even when physically distanced from one another, we remind ourselves that we are not alone. As Sheikh bin Bayyah has put it, we are all passengers on a single ship. And when we collectively turn our gaze outward to express thanks and solidarity, that's powerful. Some of you may also be aware of videos of another show of solidarity from this past spring when elementary schools were closed. Now, we probably don't have to reflect too long to remember how important our teachers were to us when we were young students. They were almost like second parents to us. So when the schools were closed, elementary school students were aware that many of their young students were teachers, elementary school teachers were aware that many of their young students were confused and upset. They didn't understand why they couldn't be with their teachers. So some of the teachers came up with a wonderful idea. They got into their cars and they drove around school neighborhoods, honking and waving to their students. And when you saw the smiles on the students' faces waving back from their yards and their homes, you could tell that the message was both needed and received. So thoughtful gestures like this of collective action have me thinking, after this crisis is over, what are some new ways in which we can come together across our many differences and recognize transcendence, express gratitude, and demonstrate solidarity, especially with the most vulnerable? Perhaps national and international days of gratitude and other civic honors for those who have sacrificed so much for the greater good during this chapter in our lives. And what about making pledges at those times that we will all take steps together to help prevent future pandemics? What about setting aside daily or weekly times where we can take collective symbolic action on behalf of groups who are being targeted around the world, such as victims of genocide and crimes against humanity? And what about coupling that symbolic action with other forms of augmented advocacy that insist that every life has equal dignity and infinite worth? I look forward to building on the initiatives of the Peace Forum and others that press for freedom of religion and belief, including the ability of all people to practice their faith without fear for their physical safety. We must continue to confront oppressors and move more people who are now on the sidelines, from the sidelines of this debate to solidarity with those who are being targeted. As President Obama said when he visited an American mosque, none of us can be bystanders to bigotry. We must make it possible for every person to claim both their religious identity and their civic identity openly and proudly. We also must renew efforts to replace our culture of contempt, as Arthur Brooks has called it, with a culture of gratitude, a culture of love for not only our neighbors, but also even our enemies. After all, the culture of contempt not only conflicts with the values so many of us say we profess, it's also counterproductive. No one has ever been insulted into agreement, as Arthur Brooks has said. Well, these are what my grandmother would call tall tasks, but they aren't impossible ones. Let us never give up hope that these things can happen, and let us never stop working together to see that they do. A second revelation from the pandemic that has already been discussed by other speakers is the increased awareness of stark inequalities. As studies have shown, the disproportionate burden of COVID-19 cases and deaths have fallen on communities of color. Even those of us who thought that we were aware of systemic racism have realized that there are more scales that need to fall from our eyes. Also, we've seen that families are hit very differently by this virus, depending on whether they can work from home, whether they have access to technology, and whether they have the space to quarantine or isolate if they've been hit by the virus. Well, as we emerge from this crisis, the question is, will we remember what has been revealed to us by the crisis? And will we take steps to fix these problems? We cannot let this be a missed opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe closer to justice, as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King so memorably said. Here's another innovation that I hope extends beyond the current crisis: new ways of practicing faith in public. Some say faith has been driven into hiding because of public health restrictions during the COVID crisis. I would say, however, that in many places and in many ways, the practice of religion has perhaps become more publicly visible than ever before. And here I'm thinking of the videos I've seen of priests in the back of pickup trucks blessing city residents as they're driven through towns. Jewish people forming minions across front stoops in their neighborhoods. Religious leaders finding ways to use technology to comfort the sick, the dying, and the grieving. Congregations expanding and adapting their food pantries to meet rising needs, and then Zooming with their elected leaders to insist that more than charity is required to meet such needs. Faith-based events, including multi-faith conferences like this one that focus on the common good, are actually drawing more participants from around the world than ever before because of added online options. We've also seen drive-in worship services and an explosion of online congregational events. Of course, we're all looking forward to being together in person again. At the same time, let us not lose sight of the fact that we've expanded the ways in which we can be together and the ways in which we can act together. And what used to happen only or mostly behind the closed doors of houses of worship has now spilled out into a more public sphere, often to good effect. In short, we've found some ways of practicing our faith in public that are new and are worth retaining. And the changes I'm thinking of haven't been only limited to the religious side. I recently read an article quoting an official of the African Union talking about his interaction with religious communities during the COVID crisis. And the official said that up until now, we haven't really created a space for faith-based communities on policy issues. They were always approached as an afterthought or as a support for implementation. But this official said, I think it's about time that we create conversations that allow religious bodies to make policy recommendations at the onset rather than after the fact. From his lips to God's ears. Our civic life will be much different and much better, I believe, if civil society, including its religious sector, is at the table from the start. In fact, many gathered at this conference have worked their whole lives to move us toward constructive models of engagement like this one. I look forward to discussing these ideas with you and want to express again my thanks to forum leaders for bringing us together for conversation and for contemplation. Let me close. May we emerge from this crisis swiftly and with honor. And as we do so, may we carry with us new insights and new hope for our future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Melissa Rogers. أما الآن تنتقل الكلمة إلى
I'd like
رئيس
now
أساقفة
to
كانتربري
invite
لكنيسة
Excellency
إنجلترا في
Justin
المملكة
Welby,
المتحدة.
the Archbishop of
فليتفضل
Canterbury,
مشكورا.
Church of England. The floor is yours, sir.
Justin Welby.
I want to thank Sheikh bin Bayer for his continued work for peace across faith traditions and his legacy. I want to thank Sheikh bin Bayer for his continued work for peace across faith traditions and his legacy in forging links between religious leaders and politicians in this work. He is a dear friend and an example to me. The COVID pandemic is sometimes described as apocalyptic. When we understand the word apocalypse correctly, it means that it reveals something. The pandemic has revealed realities of economic inequalities, of divisions of race and ethnicity, of our upside-down priorities when it comes to the kind of workers we value most, of our exploitation of God's creatures and indeed God's creation. To all of these realities, communities that see creation as a gift and each person as of eternal value in the eyes of God have something to say and something to do. Our challenge is not how do we get back to normal. The challenge is how do we as people of faith work together to go forward with those of all faiths and none and with governments to work for a new reality for the common good. I know that Sheikh bin Bayer has modeled to all of us from his Muslim convictions words and work in the service of a better reality with enormous courage. And I wish you God's blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. As that conversation continues over the next few days, as we seek together to discern what will make for a better future than the past we've inherited.
شكرا لرئيس أساقفة كانتربري جاستن ويلبي. والآن وتنتقل الكلمة إلى معالي الشيخ الدكتور محمد عبد الكريم العيسى الأمين العام لرابطة العالم الإسلامي من المملكة العربية السعودية. وليتفضل مشكورا.
محمد عبد الكريم العيسى الأمين العام لرابطة العالم الإسلامي. تفضل سيد. Thanks be to God. Your Excellency, Sheikh Nahyan bin Mubarak Al Nahyan, Minister of Tolerance and Coexistence in the United Arab Emirates. Your Excellency, Sheikh Abdullah ibn Sheikh Al Mahfouz bin Bayer, Chairman of the Emirates Council for Sharia Fatwa and President of the Forum for the Promotion of Peace in Muslim Societies. Your Eminences and Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, may peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. And on behalf of the Muslim World League and the Organization of the Muslim Scholars, from the direction Muslims face during their prayers, their unanimous reference points, Mecca in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, I'm delighted to be part of this auspicious meeting hosted by the Forum to Promote Peace, the forum that has worked tirelessly and relentlessly with his blessed efforts to promote values of peace in our world, bringing closer the various points of view about differences in faith, and especially bringing about various governmental and non-governmental interfaith organizations in order to promote peace for all, And this stems from the human values that are common to all of us. And this is something that we always reiterate, that will surely take us all to a place where we enjoy peace and harmony. So we have no other choice but to engage in a dialogue, alliance between civilizations, so that we can stand and confront the theories of clash of civilizations. And we have seen that those who have promoted these theories, their judgment has failed them. And unfortunately, their pessimistic overlook prevailed. So these kind of visions and views only brought about hatred and clashes and animosity, rather than encouraging us to engage in dialogue. Today, our world is better prepared to rapprochement and to have a better understanding. That's because of the various tools at our fingertips and our disposal that have globalized our culture and civilizations, that they have removed the artificial psychological barriers and brought us together ever closer on common platforms, where they engage openly and candidly. And of course, this will allow us to speak freely with one another and talk about all the issues with complete transparency. Civilizational dialogue needs to be effective so that it can enable us all to work together based on the shared objectives, shared understanding, and mutual respect, in order to deal with what I refer to that we have to respect our differences. We have to have mutual respect towards one another. We have to respect diversity. Dear attendees, the pandemic has proven to us once again that we are one big family, and our world is but a small village. We share this world, and no matter how much haters try to divide us and separate us, we have to unite. This is, after all, the divine wisdom of God to create this diverse world. Once we realize this fact, then we must also understand that we are facing the challenge of spreading awareness about faith and knowledge, as well as promoting the better understanding of politics, economics, social life, and different cultural approaches all over the world. Of course, we can draw examples from history, and the world has to live with peace and understanding, regardless of their differences, be it religious, racial, ideological, and otherwise. This diversity should enrich us all and be positive and add to our lives, and not an instrument of hatred and hardship. This is precisely what the Charter of Mecca called for, and that was issued in the blessed month of Ramadan, May 2019, and the Hijri year 1440. The Charter was approved by more than 1,200 muftis and scholars, and 4,500 Muslim intellectuals representing 27 Islamic schools of thoughts and sects. And they encompassed all Islamic sects without exception. They came from 137 countries in a historic meeting, the first of its kind in Muslim history. They answered the call of Muslim World of League. They all were united under the umbrella of the organization. They gathered in the vicinity of the Holy Kaaba in Mecca, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is considered to be the most important Islamic charter in Islamic history, after the Charter of Medina, signed by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the first year of Hijrah. The Charter of Mecca is one of the most important documents in our modern history. It calls for engaging in dialogue, forming alliances among civilization, and friendships among nations and people. The coronavirus pandemic has delivered an important message to everyone who is oblivious to the true meaning of believing in God, the Almighty. God's will and power is above everything else, and that this universe, no matter how great are the resources of its inhabitants, will not surpass this will of God and the wisdom of the mercy of his will, as well as compassion. This is the fact that should be bringing us closer to the Creator, glory be to him, and closer to one another. Esteemed gathering, during this auspicious meeting, I must celebrate and express my warmest congratulations and best wishes to the United Arab Emirates on the occasion of its 49th National Day, reaffirming that the celebrations of our friends in this country are also our celebrations. And we wish for them a lasting stability and security. I would also like to congratulate Sheikh Al-Mahfouz, son of the eminent scholar Sheikh Abdullah bin Baya, on becoming the Secretary General of the Forum for Promoting Peace. We supplicate Allah to bless everyone in this conference, and we pray that its outcome will bring great benefit to the entire humanity. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. نشكر معالي الشيخ الدكتور محمد عبد الكريم العيسى ونشكر جميع المتحدثين اليوم على كلماتهم المنيرة وهنيئا لدولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة على هذا الجمع القيم ودائما تبقى دولة الإمارات هي دولة السلام ودولة الحوار ودولة التعايش. وفي ختام هذه الجلسة نبقى مع استراحة قصيرة نستأنف بعدها جلسات أعمال الملتقى السابع الذي ينعقد تحت عنوان قيم عالم ما بعد كورونا التضامن وروح ركاب السفينة.
The second session will be dealing with the pandemic and the metaphor of the ship's passage. So a short break and we come back. Thank you.